Hello friends, welcome back to Herbal Product Technology and Regulatory Sciences. Last time we have seen a need for herbal product regulations. Today we are going to go in a deep for types of legal provisions and their terminologies. The flow will be definitions and scope related to the herbal drug regulations, licensing and authorization requirements, good manufacturing practices also known as GMP and the quality standards, labeling, packaging and legal requirements related to that, market authorization provisions such as rules for approval, renewal and post-marketing surveillance. Definitions. A legal definitions what constitutes as a herbal drug or traditional medicine or botanical or herbal supplements or Ayush product and what are the differences between them. Like for example, the crude drug will be termed as a herbal drug as per the regulation, where the herbal supplement means it is a processed powder or processed crude drug which is devoid of some of the components. For example, the asava or aristas are the products which are formulated which cannot be considered as a herbal drug which not in the crude form, but the same instance the isabgol husk which can be used as a laxative which can consider as a herbal drug because it is the husk of a isabgol seed. Delineation of a system, which drugs and which crude herbal drugs will be comes under which traditional system is also termed under this scope. So, Ayurvedic medicine, Unani medicine or Siddha medicine, the drugs categorized amongst this traditional medicine or even the proprietary or patent herbal products. Clarification of a product where it is regulated as a medicine, dietary supplement, cosmetics or food, because the legal regulations as per the category changes. So that's why their definitions need to be very much known before putting the regulations. Licensing and authorization requirements. Mandatory manufacturing license for herbal drug production. As per the rules and regulation, it is now mandatory to have a licensing regulation and licensing requirement for the herbal products. Earlier, the herbal products used to produce on a small scale at the stores level or at the dispensary level. But nowadays, all these products are prepared on a large scale in the factory or industry, where maybe thousands of kg of a crude drug is processed in the form of formulations. And that's why whenever there is a machinery or equipment come into the picture of production of herbal drugs, now it is a mandatory that you should have the manufacturing licenses and the requirement as per the regulations. Pre-market approval or registration, especially for the traditional herbal medicine products in EU, European Unitary. Now, here pre-market approval is not required for all type of herbal formulations, but for few of the candidates, because those candidates may have a particular phytoconstituents which may have a toxic effect beyond some limit, and such preparations need a pre-market approval and registration. A unique identification number UIN requirement for advertising some cases or some formulations. As per the regulation, some of the formulations need to be regulated and their promotion also need to be regulated as they have a severe effect onto the population. For example, talismans. The talismans are the products which have some unique activities or some very underlying activities. For such product, you cannot promote them on the basis of their magical or unique activities unless and until they are proven. National laws, regulations under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, Food Safety Standards, etc. In India, we have some of the regulations very specific towards some of the herbal products. The Drug and Cosmetics Act 1940, which is then amended in 1945 with a particular amendments in the ASU, that is the Ayurveda, Siddha and Unani medicine. Also, Food Safety Standards Act, which is also known as a FSSI, which is governed for the herbal products which meant for a purpose of a food or a food supplement, also known as a dietary supplement. International guidelines, WHO guidelines, US FDA, then DICIA and EMA, that is the European Medicine Agency guidelines. Whenever products are exported in the other territories, the guidelines are need to be followed for those country. For example, if the product is getting exported or marketed in the US territory, then US FDA guidelines are responsible to qualify that product. Similarly, if the herbal products are meant to market as a dietary supplement in a US territory, then DICIA guidelines are responsible for qualifying that product, and that is why licensing need to be done under those guidelines only. Now we will see what are the good manufacturing practices and the standards for quality purpose. Requirements for facility, hygiene, documentation, staff qualification, etc. is a part of a good manufacturing practices. The good manufacturing practices come under the Drug and Cosmetics Act 1940 amended in 1945. The Schedule T is prescribed for the GMP guidelines of specifically Ayurveda, Siddha and Unani medicine and products. On industry level, what are the facility requirements, what are the hygiene requirements towards the workers, what are the documentation requirements towards the every batch, and what are the staff requirement are as per the GMP guidelines mentioned in this act. Schedule T is a major move towards the herbal drug industry revolution. Before that, there was no such guidelines available, and because that the industry stabilization was not seen in the herbal product. After the introduction of GMP guideline, it has been seen that the major herbal industry are established. Pharmacopoeial standards for identity, purity and strength of such product. As there was no industrial product or production was available for the herbal, there was no requirement was established before the GMP guidelines regarding its quality, identity and purity of the products. But after the industrial revolution, it is need of the time that the products which are getting in the market need to be qualified on basis of identity, purity and strength. As the other products, they are supposed to have a standard or regulated specification, and those can be provided by the pharmacopoeial guidelines, and that is why the pharmacopoeial commission, under which the herbal monographs also got published in the pharmacopoeia, and all the parameters in the identity, purity and strength was established for most of the products which are used by the industry and which have a major stake in the market. Limits on contaminants, heavy metals, pesticide, residue and microbes. The need for these limits was required, as nowadays the majorly drugs are produced and procured from the different states, where the uniformity in the raw material was not seen. In such cases, if such standards are not available, then there will be a drastic quality changes must be seen in the products. To overcome this situation, the limits for such contaminants was established based on the experimental data. The heavy metal, pesticidal residue and microbes are very common contaminants present in the herbal drugs, and those need to be addressed on a priority. For an example, the limits of a pesticide was established as per the GMP guidelines, because most of the herbal drugs are procured from the agricultural fields and where they are getting cultivated and then shipped to the industry. Because they need a bigger cultivation strength, they use a pesticide to protect their agricultural crops from the pest. But such pesticidal residue can be a major contaminant when they are converted into the herbal products. And that is why it is mandatory to have a guidelines to evaluate or to quantify this residue, as well as should have some specification which guide the industry for a quality product. Requirement for safety data evidence of a traditional use or clinical trials. It is understood that the Ayurvedic, Siddha and Unani medicine as well as homeopathic medicine are the traditional medicinal system, and the products are used by the people from centuries. Still, few of the product shows some of adverse reactions. Some of them can be serious, some are not. Many of such products have a side effect which can be mitigated if they can process properly. For all this information, we need to have a safety data, and that is collected through the guidelines. Nowadays, the safety data for all the herbal products is categorized and collected through the system, which is also considered as a pharmacovigilance surveillance. Post marketing surveillance and pharmacovigilance. The post marketing surveillance and pharmacovigilance is a mandatory, as many of our patients who take herbal products are also having some allopathic drugs or medicine undertaking along with it. Even some of the food and drug interaction also seen with herbal products. To overcome that, this post marketing surveillance data is very essential. That is why the regulations are put forth to collection of such safety data from the post marketing surveillance and then convert in the data source, so that in the future all such contraindications can be avoided. Toxicology and adverse effect monitoring. The herbal drug monitoring is a new concept of some 5 to 10 years back. Before that, the herbal drug monitoring was not available. But as I mentioned, the most of the herbal drugs are taken along with allopathic medicine, or they also show some interaction with food products. It is now mandatory to have a monitoring system and toxicological data generation. It has been seen that most of the drugs are safe and do not show any toxicological side effect unless and until they are not processed properly. And that is why the processing of the crude drugs as well as the product is established, so that toxicology events are reduced. Labeling, packaging, legal requirements. Full disclosure of ingredient, botanical name, part used and information about the formulation is, as per the regulation, need to be put on the label. If you see any herbal product label, it will have its vernacular name along with its under which system or which category this formulation comes. Then it will have its legal effect or pharmacological activity for which that drug is marketed. Then on the other side you can have the list of all the ingredients along with their quantities put in the formulation. Then the statutory requirements such as the batch manufacturing number and storage conditions all supposed to be mentioned on this label. Apart from that, the marketing authorization company or the industry, its name and address along with the manufacturer name and address is put on this label. All this thing as per the regulation or a legal requirement for labeling. Specification of a dose, direction for use, expiry date, storage instructions are mandatory as per this labeling. Expiry date is the concept is when you have a particular time period for formulation. Most of the herbal products cannot label along with the expiry date, so that we have to put a period up to which they are considered to be safe. Most of the product which belongs to herbal category come with a statement as use well before the stipulated time, for example 6 months, 12 months or 24 months. Prohibition or restriction of a claims, example diseases which cannot be claimed to be treated. Prohibition or restriction of a claims, example diseases which cannot be claimed to be treated. There are some list of a disease or disorders which cannot be claimed for their complete treatment. One example for such thing is the immunomodulatory activity. The immunomodulatory activity cannot be same for the each individual. Hence, it is only used for the Hence, the product can be only used for the immunomodulatory activity, cannot be claimed. Rules governing advertisement, what can be claimed, who can promote. Most of the formulations are promoted on the advertisement by the users. Some of the formulations need to promoted only by the practitioners or doctors, where normal people cannot promote such product. Those products may have some toxic substances which can have a side effect. In such cases, the promotions has to be done to the expert person. So, all this come under the guidelines of a packaging and labeling and advertisement through the legal terms. Empowering provision for authorities specific actions regarding that. The legal provision also empower authority that what action they can take when there any kind of a falsification or any misconduct during the formulation. Simple example that if any drug which is come under the toxicant activity and need to be formulated as per the given guidelines, if the any manufacturer not following those guidelines, then the authority has all the rights to inspect the manufacturing areas and can give the penalizing punishment for that manufacturing facility. Market authorization, provision, approval, renewal and post marketing surveillance. Authorities evaluate risk benefit profile, labeling, therapeutic need and compliance with a legal standard, and then only they allow to approve the formulations. Approval is granted only if the products benefit overweight its risk for the intended population. Typically renewed every 3 to 5 years depending on the local regulations. Renewal may depend on maintaining an effective surveillance system and addressing any safety signals. Collection and analysis of adverse drug reactions, reports from healthcare professionals and consumers are collected and that will be compiled as a post marketing surveillance. So, we understood that market authorization is very important part of the herbal drug or formulation, because if the formulation do not get a market authorization, then that will not have or that will not solve its purpose. Market authorization are totally depend on to the legal regulation and requirements fulfilling. Approval process vary with the product to product, and renewals generally take place from 3 to 5 years for each and every product. The post marketing surveillance is the need of time, as we discussed earlier, that how it can have a significance into the safety and the efficacy of the formulation. So, with this we are coming to end of the topic. We will continue in the next session. Thank you.